If I ever was to do classes or something at a film school or whatever, I mean, I would preach this nonstop. Find your film family and be as loyal as possible, because they will get you through thick and thin when you need to rely. And that goes with cast too. When you find people as a director, and again, you see this in movies all the time with Scorsese, Tarantino, Spielberg, they use a lot of the same people. And that's because you have people you can go to and rely on in the toughest of times to give you a solid performance.
If you love a Western, you're going to love today's guest. Writer-director Justin Lee is a rising filmmaker who has made a number of feature-length movies in the genre, featuring the likes of Bruce Dern, Mira Sorvino, and Thomas Jane. In this episode, Justin talks about the importance of making your first movie, whatever the budget, getting the right cast and crew on board more than one project, and why he would like to sit down with the great Alfred Hitchcock. Welcome to Film Forums. Today I have a very special guest with me, writer-director Justin Lee. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your filmmaking journey, how it started? So did you go to film school, for example?
I didn't. I went to a community college for where I learned how to properly, I guess, kind of how to properly format for screenwriting, but it mainly taught me about film theory, and they beat Memento over our heads like you don't even know. Like that was the one movie we learned.
I love that movie.
Inside Out with just Memento for like an entire quarter semester.
I'm not sure I love it that much though. Yeah.
No, I mean it was like it made me love Guy Pearce. So that was my only real training in terms of doing or schooling in terms of that stuff. But actual filmmaking, I just had to dive in and do it myself. I got Final Draft forever ago and just learned how to use Final Draft and kind of just started to write, and then that turned into directing. And I kind of had to just move to LA and dive in head first and do it, and had a lot of great people kind of guiding me. Specifically, I owe a lot to Joe Carnahan for some advice he gave me and whatnot, and which got me to my first movie that I ever did, which was Any Bullet Will Do.
What kind of advice did he give you? If you can think of the one bit that stands out to you, or something that you definitely felt helped your career tangibly, what would you say that was?
Go get a movie under your belt, whether that's for $500 or $500,000. Just go get a movie under your belt to show people that you can at least make a feature film. Mm-hmm. Now, this far into my career, making a feature is not easy. Mm-hmm. It's just not easy from start to finish. And what I mean by that is, I guess, a bunch of friends can go out in the woods, they can make a movie, but there's so much more to actually getting a movie distributed than that. There's the deliverables, there's the distribution, there's just a lot of stuff to actually get your film to a spot where it can actually put out into the proper places. And it's knowing all that and knowing how to do that that comes with it. But the start of that is just to get a movie under your belt and start learning that way. That's the best advice I was given, and that's exactly what I followed and did.
Do you think if you'd known how difficult it is to get a feature made, and then what happens after that in terms of distribution, etc., do you think you would have dived heads first into it, or do you think you would have chosen a different career? And I don't mean that to be a negative question. I'm just interested to, now you're on the other side of it and you've got a few features under your belt, quite a few actually. Would you have maybe gone a different way about it, or would you have thought, oh God, that's crazy, no, I'll do something else?
I don't think I would have gone a different way about it. I didn't choose the easiest thing to do. Most people are like, hey, my first movie, I'm going to go make a movie, in one location. And, that's 99% of what I kind of see first-time filmmakers are doing, is that's kind of what they try to do. Because the person who gave me the advice was like, at least try to shock and awe your first movie, try to figure out something that someone else can't do, but you can do, which is what's going to make you valuable. I had the crazy idea. For one, I was going to make a period piece, and for two, I was going to shoot it really on location in the dead of winter with like no money. That was a very stressful challenge. Probably took like 20 years off my life, but but that being said, to this day, even in my career, it's one of the movies where I still think a ton of my heart and passion and love. There's more of it in that movie, and I'm not discrediting anything else I've done. It's just there's something about those first few films when you don't have all the money, you don't have hardly any money, and you're putting your own blood, sweat, and tears into that. And I mean, no sleep, literally bleeding for your movie. That there's a different type of love that comes out and it shows on screen if you do that. This is Any Bullet Will Do, and it got given to a distributor. And the acquisitions manager called me and said, "Hey, this is not what I was expecting." And I said, "I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing." And she goes, "Well, I wasn't expecting a movie with so much heart in it." And that was like I wore that as a badge of honor. For all I know, they could have thought the movie was terrible, but at least if that shone through, then that was kind of that was just, I wore that as a badge of honor and took that forward with me.
Turn around. More like to shoot a man in the back.
Well, I wouldn't give you the satisfaction.
Be ashamed to waste it.
At the time of recording, you have a feature, Apache Junction, due out very soon. Can you tell us what that's about?
Yeah, Apache Junction's a Western, set in the late 1800s, and it's about a female reporter who takes it upon herself. And granted, you're in a time frame where women, there was very few occupations women had, and if they had a solo occupation, obviously, usually it wasn't a reputable one. And so she does have one of those, but she wants to leave her mark. She wants to make a name for herself, so she decides to go travel to, into the lawless lands of Arizona, and go to this place she's heard of that is really running rampant with criminals and murderers and rapists, and it's a really bad place. And she wants to go write a story about it because people are afraid to go there. So she goes there and ultimately uncovers a far different story than what she set out, to write about. And she discovers an outlaw named Jericho Ford and kind of his story, and realizes that that's the story she wants to tell, rather than about how the army is supposed to be doing all this good work out there, which might not necessarily be the case.
I'd love to show the noose and see him ride the pine straight to the devil.
So now I'm coming for the whole ride.
There has to be some sort of law and order.
You're gonna have to shoot your own way out of this one.
I'm faster.
Something you can't tame.
I've been waiting a long time for this.
You talk too much.
The final version of the film, kind of, is it what you thought it was going to be when you envisaged it?
Oh, I think this is one of those answers I have to try to be political with. So personally speaking, as a writer and director myself, I don't think I ever really make a movie that I'm ever, and I never will, that I'm 100% happy. I don't know if you're an artist, if anyone does that. You listen to Tarantino and Scorsese and Spielberg, like even they're like, no one's ever 100% happy. When you put more hands in the candy jar as well, then that makes it even harder. You're also dealing with weather, time, budget. I mean, these things, happen on a movie. In particular with this one, COVID happened. We had to shut down, and we still had a whole week left of shooting. And that was, I didn't know, no one knew what was going to happen. And we eventually came back. We finished the movie strong. It arguably at a worse time to come back and shoot it, because an explosion started to happen in Los Angeles last December when we finished it. Ultimately the story's there. I think that there was some stuff I would have liked to have been better. But I'm very, very, very proud. The one thing I can speak of full-heartedly is I'm so proud of a certain performers in this film that I love through and through, and I want to work with forever. I love Trace Adkins. I will work with Trace Adkins forever. He's a good pal of mine, and I've watched him grow as an actor. He's so great. My good friend Ed Morrone, who I can't speak more highly of, who plays Oslo Pike. Stuart Townsend, I've been a fan of Stuart since I was a kid, and then getting to work with him, he's got a Clint Eastwood vibe about him. and but he brings his own flair. And then Tom Jane, Tom Jane, I've been watching. You know, I went to the theater and watched Deep Blue Sea and The Punisher. So like getting to work with Tom was a treat. And those are the kind of the things as a director that you walk away from each movie. You might not be 100% happy with certain things, but the experiences you get, that's priceless, man. That's priceless.
That segues quite nicely into my next question, well, kind of anyway. So you've made quite a few westerns now, from what I can gather. What attracts you to the genre, and what do you feel you've learned in terms of the filmmaking process along the way? So if you can maybe compare your first feature-length western compared to your most recent one, which we've just been talking about.
You have to align yourself with the right people around you. Period pieces are hard to make in general. If you can align yourself with the right people around you, you're going to make a good movie. Finding that crew is the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. If I ever was to do classes or something at a film school or whatever, I mean, I would preach this nonstop. Find your film family and be as loyal as possible, because they will get you through thick and thin when you need to rely. And that goes with cast too. When you find people as a director, and again, you see this in movies all the time with Scorsese, Tarantino, Spielberg, they use a lot of the same people. And that's because you have people you can go to and rely on in the toughest of times to give you a solid performance. That's going to better your projects and get you through the toughest times, because this is a volatile industry. This is a very volatile industry, and you have to have thick skin to do this as an occupation. I mean, the trials and tribulations you kind of go through, and man, it can be daunting and seem like you have the biggest mountains to climb. And if you don't have good people around you to lift you up when you're down, you won't make it. You'll make it to the top of that hill.
If you could sit down with two directors, so one living and one from the past, so one that's no longer here, who would they be, and what would you ask them if you had the chance?
That is a great question. We'll start with deceased. I'd sit down with Alfred Hitchcock. I would ask Alfred Hitchcock specifically why he felt his own narration was so key to his storylines, and two, why he felt that actors were such cattle rather than a particular tool that should have been respected. Living director. I think I'd have to sit down with David Ayer, and I'd want to ask David Ayer what his take on the status of the industry is in the studios, with the consistency of films he's made. He has made some phenomenal movies, and then he's made some movies where it felt like studios completely got in the way, because he's an outstanding director. And I would love to have a conversation with him and ask him those kinds of questions.